The cold wind cut through the streets like a knife. Snowflakes fell from the dark sky, covering the ground in thick white layers. The night was silent, except for the sound of soft footsteps. Slow, weak, and tired. She walked alone. Her name was Elira. She was not from this world. Her skin was pale purple. Her long silver hair stuck to her wet cheeks. She wrapped herself in a torn blanket, the only thing she had left. Her boots had holes, and her thin clothes were soaked with ice water. Elira was homeless, freezing, and forgotten. Once she had a home, a family, a future, but war changed everything. Her planet was destroyed. She escaped in a refugee ship with others, but during a stop on this alien world, she got left behind. She had no money, no ID, no food, and no one cared. The first door she knocked on was big and bright. A warm yellow light shined through the window. Knock, knock. She waited. Her hands were shaking badly. Her teeth clattered. The door opened a little. A tall alien woman looked at her, wrinkled her nose, and slammed it shut without saying a word. The second door didn't open at all. The third door opened, but the male alien behind it yelled, "Go away! We don't help your kind here!" And, through hot water near her feet, she gasped. It burned slightly, but worse was the pain in her heart. The fourth door had children laughing inside. She could smell food, warm bread. Her stomach growled loudly. She knocked softly. A child opened the door. Their eyes widened in fear. "Mom!" they screamed. The mother came and pulled the child back. Then she glared at Elira and slammed the door. Fifth, sixth, seventh. All the same. Slams, shouts, silence. By the time she reached the 10th door, she could no longer feel her fingers. Her legs trembled. She thought about just lying down in the snow, letting sleep take her forever. But something deep inside her whispered, just a little more. Maybe the next one. She knocked again and again. Each time she was met with fear, hate, or cold silence. 17th door. She leaned against the wall, beside it before knocking. Her breath came in small clouds. Her lips were blue. Her knees buckled, but she knocked. This door opened slowly. An old alien peeked out. "What do you want?" he asked harshly. "I'm cold," she whispered. "Just a little warmth, please." The alien looked at her torn blanket and shaking legs. Then he said, "Not my problem," and shut the door without a second glance. Elira stood there for a second. Then she turned and walked. Stumbled. Her body couldn't take it anymore. Her heart hurt, not from the cold, but from being unwanted, unseen. She reached the 18th house at the end of the street. A small house, no fancy lights, no guards, just a simple wooden door. She wanted to skip it. What was the point? But her legs stopped on their own. Her hand reached out. She knocked, weakly. Knock. No answer. She knocked again, slower this time. Knock. Knock. Just as her knees gave out and she was about to fall, the door opened. A warm yellow light spilled onto the snow. A human stood there. He looked surprised. His face was calm but curious. His brown eyes met hers. For a second, neither said anything. Then he spoke in a gentle voice. "Hey, are you okay?" She tried to answer, but no words came. Her mouth moved. Her lips shook. Then everything turned black. She fainted. When she woke up, she didn't know how long it had been. Her body felt warm. She was lying on a soft couch. A thick blanket covered her. There was a fire in the fireplace. The smell of soup filled the air. She blinked. The human walked in from the kitchen. He smiled kindly and said, "You're awake. Good." She stared at him, unsure if this was real. Was this another dream? "Don't worry," he said softly. "You're safe now." Tears formed in her eyes, for the first time in a long. While someone had opened their door, someone saw her as more than just a dirty alien. He had let her in, and that small act Might have just saved her life. Asterisk, she woke up, but not to pain. There was no snow on her face, no wind in her bones. No more sharp needles of cold crawling up her skin. Instead, she felt warmth. A soft blanket hugged her. A fire crackled nearby. Her hands were no longer blue. Her legs were no longer shaking. Her eyes opened slowly. Wooden walls. A quiet room. A sofa. A cup of something warm on the table. And him, the human sitting across from her, watching with quiet concern. He wasn't holding a weapon. He wasn't yelling at her. He wasn't afraid. He was holding a book, and when he saw her open her eyes, he smiled gently. "You're safe now," he said. "You passed out at my door." Illyra tried to sit up. Her body was still weak, but something inside her was stronger now. Hope. She looked at him closely. He looked ordinary. A man with short brown hair, stubble on his chin, wearing an old sweater and thick socks. But to her, he looked like a miracle. He stood up and picked up the steaming cup. He walked over and handed it to her carefully. "Soup," he said. "Not much, but hot." She held the cup in both hands. The warmth reached her fingers and ran up her arms like magic. Still, she said nothing. Her voice was stuck somewhere deep. She had not spoken in days. The human sat down again and picked up a small black device from the table. "I don't know your language," he said, tapping the device. "But maybe this thing will help." He pressed a button. The machine glowed. Blue. He spoke again, slowly, calmly. "My name is Jack. What's your name?" There was a pause. Then, the device translated in a smooth voice. Illyra understood the words. She blinked. Her lips parted. "Illyra," she whispered. The machine repeated softly. "Illyra." Jack smiled. "Nice to meet you, Illyra." It had been so long since someone had said her name kindly. Her hands began to shake again, but not from the cold this time. From something else, emotion, Jack noticed. He got up, brought another blanket, and placed it over her shoulders. "Don't worry," he said. "You're not outside anymore." She looked at the fire, then at him. She had so many questions. None of them came out. Why had he helped her? Why didn't he close the door like the others? Why was a human the only one who cared? But before she could ask anything, he spoke again. "I saw you standing there in the snow," he said. "Something told me I shouldn't let you go." Illyra's eyes began to water. She had begged at 17 doors. Only one had opened. And now, that one door felt more like home than anything she'd known in years. Then suddenly, thump, a loud sound came from outside. Jack stood up quickly and walked toward the window. His eyes narrowed. Illyra froze. Her body remembered danger. "Stay here," Jack said. He opened the front door and stepped out into the snow. A few seconds passed. Illyra sat still, holding the cup close, her heart pounding. Then the door opened again. Jack came back in, holding a box. "Just delivery," he said, chuckling. "I forgot I ordered food." He placed it in the kitchen. Illyra let out a breath. She didn't know she was holding. Jack turned to her again. "Why were you out there, Illyra?" The question floated between them. Illyra looked into the fire. She remembered the explosions, the smoke, the screams, the way her transport ship left without her, the cold nights, the cruel voices, the slamming doors. She looked up at him, her voice cracked, but she spoke. "I had nowhere else to go." The translator spoke her words in his language. Jack didn't ask more. He just nodded slowly. "Well," he said, "now you do." And for the first time in what felt like forever, Illyra smiled. Tick, tick, tick. The clock on the wall echoed softly in the warm room. Illyra sat on the sofa, her hands wrapped around the now empty soup cup. The fire crackled beside her, and Jack sat on the floor nearby, fixing an old blanket. The silence between them was calm, peaceful, even strange. Outside, the wind howled again. Snow tapped against the windows like tiny cold fingers trying to sneak in. But inside, for the first time, she felt safe. Then knock, knock. The sound was sharp too. Sharp. Both Alira and Jack turned their heads at the same time. Someone was at the door. Alira's body tensed, her fingers clenched. Her heart began to race. The cup slipped from her hands and fell on the rug with a soft thud. Jack stood up slowly. Stay here, he whispered. He walked to the door and looked through the peephole. Then he sighed. It's just a neighbor, he said. But something in his voice didn't sound relaxed. He opened the door halfway. Outside stood a tall alien man, dressed in a long brown coat with snow on his shoulders and sharp eyes beneath a metal hood. He didn't smile. You've got something strange in there, the man said coldly. Jack raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? I saw her, the man said. Purple skin. You let her in, didn't you? Jack didn't answer. I'm telling you now, the man continued. People like her bring bad luck, trouble, sickness. You should send her out before others notice. Jack's eyes narrowed. His voice became quiet, firm. She was freezing to death. I'm not leaving anyone outside in that condition. The neighbor clicked his tongue. Suit yourself. But don't say I didn't warn you. Then he turned and walked away, leaving deep footprints in the snow. Jack closed the door. Hard. When he turned around, Alira was no longer on the sofa. Alira? He looked toward the back hallway. She had hidden behind the wall. She had heard every word. Her face was pale, her hands shaking again, not from cold this time, but fear. Jack walked over and gently touched her shoulder. It's okay, he said. He's just a grumpy old man. You don't have to worry. But she shook her head. You don't understand, she whispered. He's right, Jack frowned. No, he's not. I've seen what happens, she said. When people shelter aliens like me, the whole street turns against them. Jack looked at her quietly. Then he said, then the street's wrong. He went to the fireplace and threw another log in. You don't scare me, Alira, he added. And I'm not scared of cowards who slam their doors at a freezing woman. Alira stared at him, a human, defending her, again? She opened her mouth to speak, but her voice failed. She simply sat back down on the couch, pulled the blanket tighter, and stared into the fire. Jack didn't ask her to talk. Instead, he picked up a deck of cards from a drawer and sat down across from her. You ever played cards before? He asked. She blinked. Cards? He nodded. It's how humans waste time. And for the first time, a tiny laugh escaped her lips. But outside, the neighbor hadn't gone home. He stood beside a dark vehicle at the corner of the street. His eyes scanned the house. He spoke into a small device. I saw her. Female, alone, weak, no tags. No chain mark, no property symbol. Probably escaped from one of the outer camps. A voice replied from the device. Mark the house. We'll come tonight. Back inside, Alira was learning to shuffle cards. Badly. Jack laughed as cards flew everywhere. You're terrible at this, he joked. She smiled softly. I was good at star maps, not games. You were a navigator? I was, she said. Long ago. Then her smile faded. Her eyes dropped to her hands. Now I'm just a burden. Jack leaned back and shook his head. No, he said. You're just lost, not broken. The words hit her deeper than he knew. She looked at him, her eyes shining with something new. Respect? Hope? Maybe even trust? But the night was not over, because as they talked, laughed, and shared tiny pieces of their pasts, a red light blinked silently outside Jack's home. Tracker. Someone had marked the house, and danger was coming. Asterisk. The fire had burned low. Jack had fallen asleep on the floor, a blanket pulled over his shoulders. A half-empty mug sat on the table. Cards were scattered across the rug like forgotten memories, but Alira was wide awake. She stood silently by the window, Her eyes locked on the red blinking light across the street. It wasn't there before. Her heart dropped. She knew what it was. A tracker beacon, silent, deadly. Not for visitors, but for hunters. Someone had marked Jack's house. Because of her. She turned and looked at him, this strange human who gave her warmth, food, and kindness when no one else would. He had smiled at her like she wasn't a burden, like she mattered, and now he was in danger because of her. Slowly, quietly, she moved to the table. She picked up a pen and an old receipt. She wrote something shaky. "Thank you, I had to go. You don't deserve trouble." She left it where he would see it. Then, she pulled the door open and stepped out into the snow. The cold hit her like a slap. Her blanket whipped in the wind. The ice bit her cheeks. But this time, she didn't care. Better she suffer than let Jack pay for her past. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to disappear. Into the forest, into the night. Somewhere they wouldn't find her. Somewhere they wouldn't follow. But she didn't get far. Her body was too weak, her legs too frozen. Her breathing turned into sharp gasps. Her boots cracked through thin layers of ice with every step. Still, she kept moving. Step, step, fall. She hit the ground hard. Snow covered her like a blanket made of knives. Her breath shook. She tried to stand, but her body gave out. Not now, she thought. Please, not now. Back in the house, Jack stirred. His hand reached for his mug, but knocked it over. He sat up, blinking. Elira? No answer. Elira? He stood quickly. The blanket was gone. The front door was wide open. His eyes scanned the room, then landed on the small piece of paper on the table. He read it. Once. Twice. Then he cursed under his breath and ran outside without shoes, just grabbing his coat. The snow had swallowed her footprints fast. But Jack was a soldier once. He had chased ghosts in deserts and shadows in war zones. He knew how to find someone who didn't want to be found. He scanned the snow. Then he saw a piece of purple cloth caught on a tree branch near the forest edge. He followed. Elira lay on now, her body no longer shaking. Her mind drifted in and out. Everything felt far away. The stars above her blurred like TERRDROPS. She thought of Jack's fire. His voice. She smiled, even as the cold pulled her deeper into darkness. Then warm arms, strong hands. Jack lifted her from the snow, held her tight against his chest. "You're not dying out here," he growled. "Not like this." She blinked, barely conscious. "You found me," she whispered. He laughed, his breath steaming in the cold. "You really thought I'd just let you go?" Back inside the cabin, Jack placed her on the couch and threw every blanket he had over her. He pulled out his old emergency heat pad and wrapped it around her legs. Then he leaned down and whispered near her ear, "You don't get to run off and freeze just because some idiot thinks you're less." Her lips trembled. I didn't want to bring trouble." "You are trouble," he said with a grin. "But you're my trouble now." She laughed just a little and tears rolled down her cheeks. That night, Jack sat beside her, watching the door with an old stun rifle across his lap. He didn't sleep. He didn't plan to, because now he knew someone out there wanted her gone. But he also knew one thing more. They'd have to go through him first. The fire crackled again. Morning light touched the edge of the window, soft and golden. Snow still covered the ground outside, but inside Jack's cabin, there was warmth and silence. Elira sat at the small wooden table. A hot drink steamed in front of her. Her hands didn't shake now. She stared at the rising mist as if it held answers. Jack stood near the kitchen, watching her from a distance. He didn't ask questions. He didn't push. He just waited. And finally, after 2 days of hiding, 2 nights of fear, and 1 near-death escape, she spoke. Not softly, not nervously, but with quiet strength. "My name," she said, "is Elira Venka, daughter of the High Navigator of Thalos Prime. I once mapped stars for royal fleets. I knew the paths between galaxies before I even turned 20. Jack blinked. He hadn't expected that. She looked up. Her silver eyes locked on his. And now, she said, I'm the girl who almost froze in your yard. The one who knocked on 18 doors. Jack walked over slowly and sat down across from her. I don't care what your name is, he said. I just care that you're here, alive. She gave him a small smile, but there was pain behind it. I used to give orders to fleets of ships, she whispered. Now I can't even walk half a mile without falling. Jack leaned in, resting, his elbows on the table. That's not weakness. That's surviving. Alira lowered her eyes again. I lost everything, she said. My father died in the war. Our homeworld was taken. Our people scattered. I was captured, sold, escaped, only to become a stray on a foreign planet. Jack looked at her closely. You still talk like a leader. I don't feel like one. You don't have to feel like it, he replied. You just have to be. Later that day, Jack took her to his workshop, a dusty room filled with old tech, spare parts, and broken memories. I used to repair scout ships, he explained. Now I fix broken radios and coffee makers. Alira's eyes lit up for the first time in days. She stepped toward a half-broken holographic projector. You have parts for a star map grid here, she said, tracing the wires. They're just scattered. Jack shrugged. I don't know how to use that stuff anymore. It's just junk now. Maybe, she said softly. But I remember how to make it work. For the next hour, she moved through the room like a dancer in an old memory. Her hands were steady now. Her mind focused. Jack watched as she connected things he didn't even know could connect. And then with a final click, the room filled with glowing light. A 3D map of stars bloomed in the air like a galaxy of fireflies. Jack's eyes widened. Whoa! Alira stood in the center of it all. She was smiling. Not the weak smile of survival, but the proud smile of someone returning to herself. These are the paths I used to travel, she said. Before the war. Jack stepped beside her. Can you still fly them? She turned her head. If I had a ship, yes. Then her face fell. But no one gives ships to broken refugees. Jack didn't reply right away. He looked at the swirling stars. Then at her. You're not broken, he said. You just haven't been given a chance to rebuild. That night, Alira sat outside the cabin, wrapped in a thick blanket, watching the stars above. Jack joined her, holding 2 cups of hot cocoa. He passed her one. She took it, then looked up again. You know, she whispered, I used to believe stars were everything. They guided us, fed us, protected us. But when I was down there, in the cold, none of them answered. Jack sipped his cocoa and said, maybe they were just waiting for you to look from the right place. Alira smiled for the first time. She believed she wasn't just a survivor. She was Alira Venke, and she was coming back. Asterisk. The night was quiet. Too quiet. Even the wind held its breath. Inside the cabin, Alira slept peacefully for the first time. In weeks, her face was soft, her breathing steady. The star map projector glowed faintly in the corner, casting tiny dots of light on the walls like dreams drifting through the room. Jack sat on the floor beside her, leaning back against the couch, his eyes half closed. He should have slept, but something in his gut said no. He checked the door lock again. Then the windows. Everything was sealed. Still, something didn't feel right. He placed his old stun rifle near the fire, and then it happened. Crash. The window shattered. A flash of light. A high-pitched screech. Before Jack could grab the rifle, a black figure flew through the broken glass and tackled him to the floor. Another shadow moved fast toward Alira. No! Jack roared. He punched the first attacker, grabbed the leg of the second, but too late. The attackers were fast, trained, silent. One stabbed him with a shock prod. His muscles locked. As he collapsed to the floor, barely breathing, he saw them inject something into Alira's neck. She gasped. Her eyes met Jack's, and then she was gone, carried into the snow by black figures who vanished into the night. When Jack woke, the fire was almost out. Blood dripped from a cut above his eye. His hands shook as he pushed himself off the floor. Alira. He saw the broken window. The snow outside was disturbed footprints leading into the forest. Without hesitation, Jack grabbed his rifle, a backpack, and an old tracking drone. "Not again," he muttered. "No more stolen people, no more chains." He set the drone to scan. A tiny red light blinked as it lifted into the sky. "Come on, give me something." Beep. A signal. Jack's heart raced. He jumped into his rover, kicked the engine alive, and followed the drone into the dark woods, somewhere deep in the forest. Alira awoke inside a cage. Her arms were chained to the walls. The smell of oil and metal filled the air. Cold lights buzzed above her. Her head spun. A voice spoke. Well. The little map reader is alive." A tall alien stepped into view. Scarred face. Uniform with the mark of the old campmasters. Alira's heart sank. "You were marked for transport months ago," he said. "We thought you were dead. Turns out you were just hiding in a human rat's cabin." She tried to speak, but her throat burned. "You'll go back to the camps," he continued, "where you belong." Then she saw something behind him on a screen. A blinking red dot. It was moving fast toward them. Her eyes widened. "Who's coming?" The alien snarled. She smiled weakly. "Someone who opened the 18th door." Back in the rover, Jack's eyes locked on the location pin. He loaded the only 2 charges he had left. His hands were steady, his eyes sharp. He wasn't a soldier anymore, but he remembered how to fight. He arrived at a hidden outpost built into the rocks. Guards. Lasers. Cameras. Didn. Single quotes D-matter. He went in anyway. The alarm sounded 5 minutes later. Boom. The side wall exploded. Smoke. Fire. Screams. Jack stormed in like a ghost from Warfast. Brutal, unstoppable. He stunned the first guard, slid under a beam, took down 2 more with 1 move. He found the cage room. Saw her. She was slumped against the wall, her hands bound. He ran to her, broke the lock, and caught her before she fell. "You came back," she whispered. "Of course I did." She smiled. "I left to protect you," he grinned. "Too late. We're both in trouble now." They escaped through a hidden tunnel. The sun was rising by the time they reached the rover again. Alira was weak but alive. And Jack? Jack was no longer just a kind stranger. He was her rescuer, her shield, her home. They didn't return to the city. Not right away. Jack took Alira somewhere far deep in the green hills, where the snow was thinner and the stars seemed closer. A small cottage stood at the edge of a cliff, quiet, safe, untouched. Here Alira began to breathe again, not just with her lungs but with her soul. Weeks passed. She was stronger now. She ate, slept, laughed. The nightmares faded. The shaking stopped. Her voice grew steady. And one morning, while Jack was fixing the water pipes, she walked into the workshop and said, "I want to build something." Jack looked up, smiling. "What kind of something?" "A map," she said, "for people like me, so they can find doors that open." By the end of the month, she had turned half the cottage into a star lab. She repaired the projector, linked it to local communication satellites, created signal beacons for lost ships, crash survivors, and refugees, those scattered by war and chaos, forgotten by systems. Each light she lit became a whisper across the stars. "You are not alone." One evening, as rain tapped gently on the windows, Jack brought her a box. "What's this?" she asked. He opened it. Inside, clothes, tools, a new ID card, and something wrapped in silk. She pulled it out. A small metal key. "What door does this open?" She asked. He smiled. Yours. She blinked. I don't understand. Jack looked at her, serious now. I've seen you cold, sick, hunted, and still you stood up again. You don't belong to a cage. You don't belong to the past. This world doesn't deserve you, but maybe, just maybe, I do. Her lips trembled. He continued, voice softer. This is your home now, and I'm not just giving you a key to the house. He placed her hand over his heart. I'm giving you a key to me too. Elira didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked out the window. At the rain, at the grass, at the stars beyond the clouds. And then she said something he didn't expect. I want to knock on a door. The next day, she walked into town, wearing clean clothes. Head high, no chains. No fear. She found a small shelter at the corner of the market. Outside the door sat a little alien child, wet, hungry, shaking, just like she once was. Elira knelt down. Where's your family? She asked. The child said nothing. Just held out a trembling hand. Elira took it, walked to the shelter door. Knocked. Once. Twice. It opened, but the worker frowned. We're full. Elira didn't flinch. She reached into her coat and handed over her card with the royal mark of Thalas Prime. The worker's eyes widened. She stays with me, Elira said. I have space. Then she turned to the child and smiled. You just found your 18th door. Back at the cottage that evening, she told Jack everything. He listened, then asked, why did you say 18th? Elira looked at him. Held his hand, and whispered, because the one you opened for me will always be my 19th.